I'm already down. So,
Getting a network error on my iPad.
oh, we're having
Okay.
it's been
For all the others, obviously.
okay.
Thank you, Deb.
It actually was smoother than I anticipated.
I feel like the Brady Bunch here.
Are you Marcia or Jan?
I'm gonna say it's
I don't remember.
Marcia.
Fuck.
Kelly, are you in for Danny Lambert?
No, Danny.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, there he is. All right, let's give this a whirl. It's 10 o'clock. I will call their BET meeting for Tuesday, April 7th to order. Notice the meeting was posted Friday, April 3rd, 2020. We're going to do a roll call attendance. Christy Trethway Miller, Amy Lauren,
Here.
Danny Honeycutt,
Here.
Danny Lambert,
Here.
Miles Davidson,
Here.
Mike Morrison,
Here.
Brandy Mertens,
Here.
and Cody Compton is here. Let the record reflect Cody Compton, Danny Honeycutt, and Christy Miller are in person in the BOCC room. The remainder are logging in via video conference. Item number one, discussion of possible action to set a date, time, and place. Meeting reconvene in the event technical difficulties arising in the course of this meeting and cannot be corrected within a maximum of 30 minutes.
Supposed to receive the update?
There's not been an update yet.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion that we meet at the same time tomorrow. Well, that wouldn't work. It's 2 o'clock. What would we need to do? Wednesday at probably 3 o'clock or something. Everything's stacked up.
I can't, I missed some of that. I think some others did as well. And I can't see Danny Lambert. I believe we have to be able to see each other at all times in here.
So I think Wednesday at 3 o'clock is the best option in case we lose connectivity. Unless we needed to push it to another time.
What about tomorrow at 9 or 10? Same time, just 24 hours later.
Got
Our office hours are closing at 3 every day.
What about 1 o'clock today? We already have a special meeting at 1. Why don't we just set it for 1 o'clock and we can take care of this rest of whatever remaining business we have before we get into the special meeting?
Is that your motion?
Well, Miles, I'm just
No,
throwing that out
that's
there.
works. I know we can't do. I think 10 o'clock tomorrow might be pushing for BOCC and PBA and everything.
Oh, true.
If we can do that, I thought we had to go outside of the day, but if you think we can stay within the same day.
No, I think we can, legal
Unless-
counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our recess would be for any time set by this group prior to the technical difficulties. So anytime today or in the future would be. I'm getting a head nod, yes, from legal counsel.
Let's just do 1 o'clock then.
1 o'clock today? Can I
Yep.
see, I can't see Mr. Lambert, I see Miles twice.
Is that a fat joke, Cody?
That's probably not a bad thing.
Which is 3 times too many.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we got you, Danny.
All right, good. Well, you don't need to see me then.
I think since your video conference, we have to see you.
Okay, gotcha.
There you are. Okay, so Miles has a motion that should we have technical difficulties that last more than 30 minutes, that we will reconvene this meeting at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Christy Miller seconds that motion. We will have a roll call vote. Christy Miller,
Aye.
Amy Lawrence,
Aye.
Danny Honeycutt,
Aye.
Danny Lambert,
Aye.
Miles Davidson,
Aye.
Mike Morrison,
Yes.
Brandy Mertens,
Aye.
Cody Compton is an aye. All right, item number 2, approval of the minutes. Discussion and possible action to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on March the 10th. Oh, you know what? Are we doing this electronic or just verbal?
So y'all are doing electronic? I got you.
You got me? Okay, thanks. Okay, sorry about that. Item number 2, is there a motion to approve minutes from March the 10th?
So moved.
We've got a motion from Mr. Honeycutt. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Miller. All those in favor, say aye. I'm sorry, we got to do roll call. Ms. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Aye.
Mr. Lambert,
Aye.
Mr. Davidson,
Aye.
Mr. Morrison,
Aye.
Ms. Mertens,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right, item number 3, discussion and possible action to recommend budget board a transfer of general fund appropriations in the amount of $14,051.80 from general fund reserve 995 operation to election board 250 operation. Transfer is necessary to cover the cost of the special election held March the 3rd. I think everybody is probably aware of this item. I have an email from the election board from Ms. Hollis, if anybody wants a little more detailed information. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Approve transfer.
I'm sorry, who made that motion?
Danny. Lambert.
Okay, Mr. Lambert, you made the motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Davidson seconded. All right, Ms. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Aye.
Mr. Lambert,
Aye.
Mr. Davidson,
Aye.
Mr. Morrison,
Aye.
Ms. Mertens,
Aye.
and chair votes aye as well. Item number 4, discussion and possible action to recommend to the budget board a transfer in the amount of $250 from general fund reserve 995 to commissioner's 120 benefits account. Purpose of the transfer is to cover a shortage for FICA tax due to the increase in the monthly travel allowance. Is there any discussion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Davidson motions to approve the item. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Morrison, Mr. Honeycutt, beat you to the punch there. Honeycutt second. Roll call vote. Ms. Miller? Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. At item number 5, Discussion and possible action to recommend to the Budget Board a transfer from General Fund Reserve 995 to Sheriff's Office General Fund Law Enforcement 518 in the amount of $77,405.61 for the lease of office space with effective date April 1, 2020, June 30, 2020. It's not stated in here, but this is associated with a rental estimate for the Kraus.
I just had one quick question on our April 1st. Are they moving over there? Have they started?
We have not.
Okay. But do we have a lease yet with PBA?
We do not have a lease yet. Still are going to be seeking funding from the Budget Board on this item. And so if we don't, obviously we're not starting April 1st, so any amount in excess would just be utilized for moving expenses.
Do you know how the square footage, how big it is? Rick was wanting to know more information about how big your space is going to be. And then also, is it going to be like, once we do it, is it going to be a yearly thing?
The square footage of the first floor is a little over 17,000. I don't know the exact square footage, and then I think we're anticipating about 2,500 square feet in the basement.
Okay.
And then I would anticipate it being a yearly thing. That would be our new office.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll move that.
We got a motion from Mr. Honeycutt to approve the transfer. Do we have a second? Got a second, Ms. Miller. All right, roll call vote. Ms. Miller? Ms. Lawrence?
I'm going to abstain because Rick needs more information at this point. So,
Okay, Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Mertens?
aye.
And the chair votes aye. Item passes. And Kelly, will you make sure and get that on board for us as a recommendation, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right, item number 6, discussion and possible action to recommend to the Budget Board a transfer in the amount of $8,000 from General Fund Reserve 995 to General Fund Court Services 301 operation in order for court services to fund GPS monthly monitoring.
I know we don't have Grant here. I have one question. I thought GPS fees that were charged was like a revolving account to cover this.
This is actually, the money will be put into the general fund, but it's to compensate for the drawdown completely of the indigent fund. They have an indigent fund that they utilize to put folks that can't afford the GPS fee on it, and there was $50,000 put in that back in the end of 2013, and it was slowly dwindled down, and then the last couple years been greatly utilized, and he's running out of funds there. So I think what his purpose is this money will go into his general fund account. Currently, he pays salaries and benefits out of general fund. His M&O is paid for out of the GPS fund that you were a moment ago. For the rest of the year, instead of paying M&O out of his special revenue account, he'll pay that M&O out of his general fund account, this $8,000, and then he can transfer the M&O money from the regular GPS account to the indigent account. Since they're special revenues and he was told he can't transfer from general fund to special revenue, that's kind of the way that we were kind of able to determine that we could fix it for the remainder of this fiscal year and maybe figure something else out at a later date to kind of ramp it back up.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
Miles,
Cody, I'm,
maybe just a little, do you have anything to add?
that's what I was about to ask, Cody, is I'm all for it, giving money. My biggest issue is the fact that we're using this indigent fund. Those individuals that we're not sure that we can actually use the indigent fund for. I believe we're using it for some outside entities that I don't know clarified whether or not we can actually use those funds for. So I would hate to put more money into the account and continue to fund people that we're not able to legally fund. That makes sense.
Did everybody catch that? I'm
Yeah.
getting,
Yeah.
I'm getting head shake in the negative direction. Can you repeat that one? There was adjustment to the mic, so I think we're good now.
Okay, so there's the indigent fund that we use for the GPS. There's numerous entities that use it. I'm not sure that one, there is any mutual agreement between those entities and us in order to be able to access our GPS monitoring service, for one. Two, I don't know that we can legally pay for some of these monitors. And I don't have any problem continuing to support those that need the support. But as we're eventually out there put GPS monitors on those that have the ability to pay for it through whoever they're being managed by, I have a little bit of issue with that. I know that's kind of broad in this item, but I just want everybody to be aware that we have some things inside of that fund that we need to look at before we do another 50,000.
Yeah, Miles, I track where you're going with that. I think that's the reason why we're looking at 8,000 to get through the rest of this fiscal year and some of the GPS and not pushing it back up to 50,000 or whatever at this point. I think we do need to look at some policies and procedures going forward and get with the DA's office on a few things before we ramp it back up. I think this would be money that he could utilize for the services folks that are presented to them from the courts that are indigent and need a GPS to finish out the fiscal year. And Mr. Billingsley just walked into the room. Is that sufficient to explain, getting a thumbs up? So I agree with what you're saying completely, Miles.
Yeah, I try not to throw anybody under the bus, but make everybody aware.
Did you say, what other entities do we share a fund with? Or can you?
He's not referencing sharing a fund. He's referencing other people utilizing court services, ankle monitoring services out that are not. Is that a sufficient explanation for you, Miles?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Who makes that determination of who uses the fund? So they're not just grants. Am I getting too far off in the item?
No, I don't think you're too far off the agenda item. I think these are part of the larger global discussions that Miles referencing to have going forward. Not to be coy, and if you're not comfortable, I completely stand voting no on this with lack of information that you may have, on that, I understand. But before I go into any more in depth on that, I would need to have some conversation with the DA's office, and I don't really want to get too far out in front of that at this particular point.
But it is grants that does have some determination. I mean, it's
Oh,
it's
no.
still an 8,000 that he,
Grant, the judges are the ones that
The
indicate to you who
judges,
is indigent. Is that correct?
okay.
Yeah.
That's suffices, thank you.
So Grant's told,
Gotcha.
here, do this. and
By a
that's
judge.
what he's-
Okay, that helps a lot.
All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make,
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Miller approved, or making a recommendation to approve the transfer. Do we have a second?
second.
We have a second. I think that was Mr. Lambert.
It was.
Okay. Sorry, I looked down for just a second. All right, roll call vote. Ms. Miller? Ms. Lauren?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Kelly, once again, can you get this on Budget Board as a recommendation from BET for us,
Thanks,
please?
Grant.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right, item number 7, discussion and possible action regarding policies and procedures BET is going to utilize in making a recommendation to the Budget Board regarding the fiscal year 2021 annual budget. I had requested this item be put on the agenda. I've had a couple people mention some different scenarios. We're in a little bit of a different situation right now than we have been the last several years when it comes to us being able to meet and have a robust discussion. So in that spirit, I wanted to put something on here so we could kind of figure out what the will of the group is moving forward on making a recommendation for this fiscal year annual budget.
I know I'd like to see us come up with something to take the budget board for May 21st, obviously to have for July 1, and put off our meetings. And I use meetings loosely. I know they're post meetings, but they're more of workshops face-to-face. And I think the kind of work that we need to do a full annual budget, be around the table face-to-face when it's safe. So I would propose that we put the meetings off for such time that we can meet, clearly looking at having a final budget in place with our September supplement. So really, in my mind, it's just kind of what do we want to recommend to the budget board for the July 1 year starts. I was kind of thinking 3/4 of their current year budget, load that in. I've also heard a flatline budget. Those options to me don't make a difference. It's more safe doing the kind of job that we need to do to get a good final budget for all of the year. That was my comment.
You know, we'll have to keep in mind, you know, next year is that we're about to hit an election year, so we'll have to keep in mind the Senate rule and so what kind of piecemealing together a budget, the impact it will have on everything. I know specifically for the detention budget, that probably wouldn't be that big issue. So either way that Christy's talking about. For the law enforcement side, you know, we are going to be having a little bit different budget than we had last year. So that might, bless you, that might also impact what we're able to do in that regard.
I know that issue did come up about being the election. Whether it's your budget flatline now or 3 years to get through 3 months, it shouldn't be a problem. I know that's been talked about.
We do a 3/4 budget. I agree with you, Christy. 3 months shouldn't be difficult to get.
Miles, you're fading on us.
I can't hear it either.
Was you saying I support the 3/4 rule?
Yeah, the assessor's office worked that 3/4 rule as well.
Sorry, Mike.
Assessor's office can do the 3/4 rule as well.
I'm in favor of putting off this process until everything gets back to normal, but I do agree with sticking with a flatline budget. One, when we're putting a budget book together, you know, you look back and you do comparisons. I'm not in favor of the 3/4 amount for the budgets to start out with. I think we can start with a flat budget. And then once things do get back to normal, we can always adjust it. July, August, September. That might mean some departments take some decreases, which is more likely since our employer share of the premiums are going down. And also like a reference that this is an election year. We got the 50% rule for those who are up for election. So you're kind of hamstrung with a 3/4% budget going on the 50% rule starting July 1.
Annie, just out of curiosity, how hamstrung are you? 3/4 of your budget.
Well, I mean,
Help me understand that.
yeah, I mean, if that's the guideline that you start with, you know, July 1, you can only spend half your budget, you know, by December 31st, which, you know, 85% of that is salary and wages and benefits. So I don't know.
That's December 31st, correct? I mean,
Correct. Yeah,
by
that-
September, we're looking at coming in and fixing everything.
right. I just don't see the advantage of the force budget, I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't have a strong preference either way. When I first started at it, I thought about the 3/4 only because I was thinking it's just 3 months we have to get through, maybe less. I mean, we could even come in and, you know, earlier, but I was thinking it was just 3 months. I see what Danny's saying about the budget book. Clearly that budget book and when you post it on the website, it has big red letters that say due to COVID-19,
Yeah.
this is not our normal amended budget, and it's provided. And then we can just repost the September 1 on the website. I think my whole reason for the 3/4 versus line is it seems to give everybody more money than take from them. But I'm in full support of the full. If as long as we make it very clear that these departments and offices understand that we could be taking from you in September.
Right.
If it's easier to manage and just take the current year budget, clearly I'd like to see what the revenue looks like. I know, Mike, we still don't really have our revenue figures, which we usually don't have until budget board of April.
Correct.
And not try it if we don't have a revenue projection yet. I can go
Right.
either way. I want to be safe and kind of start meetings off.
Yeah, September 1st, we'll have all of our numbers, just as though we would have in the past. So we definitely would have solid numbers as of September 1st.
Do we have a good estimate, though, that we could use prior to July 1?
It would be a flat rate across the board at this point, being that our office has been closed for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and on our end, we're putting revenue projections together like we normally do this time of year. So we'll present those to the budget board next week. So part of that equation is the fund balance. So at least we'll have a total amount once I get the amount from the assessor as well that we have to work off of. And then as far as the budget, also something to consider is encumbrances at the first of the year. I know a lot of departments have contracts that they have to encumber for the full amount for the full year. So that's something else to consider as far as a flat budget is concerned.
That's a good
What
point.
if, I'm not making a motion yet, but what if we have our regular meeting, we cancel our workshop meetings for this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, and Thursday morning, We have our regular meeting as scheduled in May. By then, maybe have some projections and decide what we want to do then.
I would support that. This thing's a little early to be tying our hands.
And even if we hadn't needed to have a meeting in this forum another time before that May budget board, so we have our regular one, and before May 21st, if we need to meet again, everyone can visit with their elected officials, and we can go from there.
Well, what I would like to have is, if this is the route that we're looking to go down, this is a pretty drastic change from the way things have happened in the past. So I would like to have budget boards okay on this. So whether it's this month, make the recommendation to budget board that we move forward with, say, a flat budget, and then we come back into our workshops in June, July, August, whenever it's safe for us to do, and then come out with a final budget when we normally would just be doing the September supplement. I think we need budget board to approve that measure. So whether we do that this month or wait until May, I would kind of like to have that recommendation on this month. That way, if budget board says just flat out, no, we're not interested in that, we need you guys to get us something, then we'll lose time between this budget board meeting and the May budget board meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. The only issue though is you're similarly putting them in the same boat as we are right now, as we don't have as much information as we'll have next month.
Well, but we could always adjust fire as the situation changes. So if all of a sudden everything kind of clears out and we're okay to get back together, then we can get back together and start having the conversations that we were planning on having in maybe July, August, September. We could start that at any point and then go back to budget board and say, hey, we've been able to come up with this process a little bit quicker. Do you want us to go ahead and present? And then we're ahead of the game instead of behind.
I would be fine with the flatline budget and taking it to budget board in April. You know, in theory, this is what we want to do. Are you okay with it? As long as those revenues are there, we would just have to say if the revenues come in short versus what we had projected for this year, would we just kind of lower reserve and still keep everyone at flatline? Just a couple things to discuss, but I mean, if we feel like we need to get budget board approval to do something different, which I feel like we're all our own representatives to our elected official that wouldn't quite need that, but I see what you're saying. I follow.
And as it's presented, I can let budget board know that if, you know, this is our recommendation at this particular time, and if the situation changes, we'll begin to meet in a workshop setting to get this done as quick as humanly possible, and that may be ahead of time, and maybe we can meet the end of May. But if we can't, then everybody's on the same page as far as what our moving forward plan is. I do, if we're going to go that route, whether it's making a recommendation now or in May, I think we need to look at a couple things, and the revenue projections are going to key in heavily on this. Number one, we have approved a COLA the last several years countywide. I would like to have some discussion about keeping that going, and if so, that would be in addition to the standalone. And then if there are departments that have if they know up front that they have either a significant need more than what they had the last fiscal year, and it's going to say it's an encumbrance issue, and they've got a 50% issue along with that, we could always, on a onesie-twosie basis, make a recommendation for a change on that particular budget, but we're only discussing, you know, that one thing and not having to go through every single one until we can really get back together. Does that make sense? So if you have if you have something in your budget that you feel like is an emergency, and having a flat budget from July 1 until September is just absolutely not workable, then we could take that up as a discussion. I don't see that being an issue, but we could always leave that out there for somebody if there is something. But I mean, for instance, on the sheriff's side, law enforcement, and you'd have to sit down and work the numbers out, but if they're going to be leasing from Kraus or from PBA for the full fiscal year, they're going to have to encumber on July 1, that plus their other encumbrances and then their salaries and benefits through September, is that going to be an issue? If it is, we could always look at, and this may be a good idea just in general, on those types of lease agreements, do like what we've done in other places. I think the court clerk's lease is paid for out of, and we could even, if that were going to be an issue, we could look at doing that lease agreement with PBA out of general government instead of out of the law enforcement budget. If the 50% rule is going to put you guys up in a tough spot with having a lease agreement on there as well, I think we could look at going that route.
I think I'm just looking for the least amount of meetings until it's safe, and then we do our full workup, giving every department, every office, the chance to present their budget. I understand if some things pop up, given that we're may try something different.
Yeah, we're going to have the revenue numbers ready to go to budget board next Thursday. Typically in the past several years, we've had a BET meeting prior to go over the revenue projections. So I don't know if that's necessary at this point. But at least we'll have a number to present to budget board next Thursday that we're going to work off of.
Danny, how are those numbers looking now?
They're looking fine. Of course, the biggest part of that is the numbers Mike Morrison will provide. So maybe he can weigh in on that.
Yeah, like we talked before, I'm looking at pretty much a 2 to 2.5% across the board. I expect it'll be a little bit more than that, but I'm comfortable with that 2 to 2.5% in regards to previous forecast.
Increase, correct? A 2 to 3% increase?
2 to 2.5 is what I'll probably present to Danny.
She's wanting the word increase, and not
Increase,
decrease.
not decrease.
Increase, yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
No, things are still looking good as far as numbers go with us. It's just, this is right in the busiest point of our season, so I can't run any reports to give you any because we haven't worked it all yet. So.
I do know when we were in this position last year, when we presented our budget to budget board last May, I want to say there was a good $5 million that was in that for July 1 in reserve. So we've got some leeway there too. And then we added $3 million. So we did have a pretty big chunk. I think it was our highest amount in reserve on July 1 that we've done. So we do have that there.
And I will say also, looking at that employee benefits fund, last year we put 3.4 million in from general fund. This year we're looking at about 5.8 million. So
What?
transfer, yeah, with the premiums going down, the employer share, employee share, and the fund balance going down considerably. To try to maintain that $1 million balance, we're going to have to transfer a little more than we did last year.
Disregard my comments on $5 million extra. That kind of.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we stay with a flatline budget to present to Budget Board in May. And that would be put into play July 1, with the caveat that all and departments understand that it's going to be revisited, and we will go through the budget process as always, just a little later when it's safe, and budgets could be adjusted up or down.
And this recommendation would be, you said, given in May, you mean we'd actually give the budget recommendation, but we'd run this past Budget Board this month at their April meeting.
Yes, I would adjust my motion to make that clear too as well. It's not going to hurt to run it by them what we're intending to do.
Does your motion include the caveat that Cody was speaking about on the one-offs that need to be adjusted?
I'm just trying to avoid meetings. If there's these one-offs, how many are popping up and how often are we meeting? I'm just trying to avoid having to meet until it's safe and really dive into people's budgets. Well, I was. Do you feel like we need to do that? Are you thinking because you're leased or?
I think the lease is the biggest question out there.
Well, I think what we could do is we could also make a recommendation that lease agreement is out of the general fund account instead of out of the law enforcement account. And then it's not going to affect their budget at all.
Right.
So then the standalone would be fine. Danny, is that where on the court clerk's storage, is that out of their budget or is that out of general fund? I know the old one was out of general fund.
Yeah, that's out of general government.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
Yep.
we would just do that potential lease agreement the same way we do
Yeah.
the clerk storage agreement.
The other question is the budget we get from the jail trust. How do we work that into it?
Being a separate legal entity, I would assume it would be by contract with general government, but I know we haven't talked about all that.
I mean, I think what I would envision is it being just what we said. It would be flat. It would be the same amount we gave the sheriff to begin with, and the way they can operate within that.
So are you saying leave it in, Miles, are you saying leave it in general fund in the detention cost center?
Well, I don't know about leaving it there. I think eventually it would have to be transferred over, but the amount of funding, I think, would remain the same.
To start out, yeah, I agree with that as far as the amount of funding.
Budget's a
Mechanics.
flat. I think everybody stays the same, and we can adjust anything that needs to be adjusted at a later date. If somebody needs more money to pay rent, or if somebody needs less money because they have less employees or something, we can adjust all of these numbers at a later date.
Right.
When it comes to a budget
Well,
book,
we'll
and
just have to-
it's looking funny when we post it. You know, it's the world we live in right now. Everything's going to look a little funny when it's posted. State budget's going to look. But that's just the
We'll
way
just have to
things
be cognizant. Sorry, Miles.
do. What?
I apologize. I cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead.
We'll just have to be cognizant of the fact that when we're talking about money that's going to go to the trust, is once that money goes there, we can't adjust that down.
That's right.
And so,
That's
The county
true.
does not have 30 million to hand to the trust. They're going to have to work off of, we just don't have the cash flow to transfer money to them. They're going to have to understand that it's going to be, I don't know if it's a month at a time, 3 quarters. There is not $30 million of cash on July 1 to give anybody.
I'm assuming that's going to be in a contract form, so that would also be put in general government. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think it'll be in contract form. I think it'll be in the same form that has been utilized to get them the 500,000 that's been transferred thus far.
Okay.
But yes, that would be, in my mind, it would be out of general government.
Yeah, we have had some discussions with members of the trust and their new chief financial officer and Greg Williams. And so it might be a situation where we could have an idea of what, at least from a detention standpoint, that budget would look like. They've sought our help in kind of helping them put that together. So the other aspect that this body needs to make sure that we're crystal clear on is, you know, in addition to any detention budget the trust may have, they also have operational expenses. And so we'll have to be aware that that elephant's in the room. So that's why I would just be hesitant at setting the detention budget flat at this moment, but we can obviously adjust it down prior to any effective start date of that trust.
I never envisioned if we did the flat line and kept that 30 million or the 30.2 for detention that was stuck until I understand once it's transferred to them. Let me restate my motion with the one change. If there's no second, clearly another motion can be made. I make a motion that we put off our budget presentations until it's safe to meet and we can do our due diligence, hoping that will be done in time to have a final budget in September. Propose to the budget board next week, this month, our intentions of what we're doing. And then in May, have a presentation of the flatline budget for them to approve for July 1.
Second.
So would we address COLA and that kind of stuff in September? Is that what you're thinking? Okay.
For sure.
Okay, is there any further discussion? The clerks, are you clear on the motion? Okay. I mean, it was well stated, but.
It was kind of, yeah.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the table. Ms. Miller, motion, Mr. Davidson seconded. We're going to have a roll call vote. Ms. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
No.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. David?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Mertens? I saw your mouth move, but I couldn't hear you. See the thumbs up. Can you say aye again? I think that's what you said.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. You just cut out. And the chair is an aye. Motion passes. I will do my best to explain our situation.
Okay.
Was that 7-1?
I'm sorry?
Did I hear a no vote from Danny Honeycutt? Was it 7-1?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
All right, item number 8, discussion and possible action to receive an update on employee benefits. Is Mr. Wilkerson
Good.
on the?
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Tom. Yes, sir.
Okay. Looking at paid claims, medical and prescription combined through tomorrow, we're 2.3% above where we were at last year at this time. So not a bad position. What we were seeing on the utilization side is very important at this time, seeing far less pre-certifications of expensive procedures, services, etc. And it's just a guess of timing now is when that'll impact our cost, because the timing of when someone receives services versus when it's filed versus when it's paid, there's a lag time. But I expect our last 3 months of this fiscal year, our cost to go down. because we're seeing far less utilization of the routine services. And then on top of that, we're also seeing far less utilization of the more expensive services that require pre-certification. And then Danny, of course, that transfer in of the budget for employee benefits next year, that's based on average claims paid on what we're experiencing now. So all that could change based on how these last 3 months turn out, because right now we're averaging, or I think the estimate's based on a $275,000 weekly medical claims cost. And I think that could go down drastically.
Hey, John, it's Cody. Do we have any big stop loss payments that you're expecting to come in, or any rebates?
None at all. Stop loss, we had some big claims that got close, but those cases have ended, so we do not expect any stop loss from now until the end of the fiscal year. We do expect to receive another rebate payment in June. So that should offset some of the cost. But I really expect us to be close to flat as we approach July compared to last fiscal year. We just don't see the amount of utilization now. And of course, that will take a little while to trickle in and get those claims paid. But I really expect us to be close to flat compared to last fiscal year.
Well, do you think some of that is because of the elective procedures and that kind of stuff have been postponed? I'm asking that because do we need to anticipate a big surge on services and claims once the full medical industry is opened back up, if you will?
I think we should be fine.
Kind of early to project on that.
Yeah, I'm just, my concern is that maybe it's not that we don't have the need out there. It may just be that people can't get some of the services that they would normally be getting. So we may need to keep that in the back of our minds that we may get, the beginning of next fiscal year, a big ramp up in people utilizing services. I don't know, it's just a guess on my part, but that's something that I would be a little concerned about.
Well, I mean, if we're looking at, the loss in elective services and looking at having to fund those in the future, we probably ought to just assume that we're going to have one or two or more in ICU with coronavirus. And how would that affect
Yeah, we do not have any current inpatient cases related to that.
Good.
No, that's something I monitor daily. And our big cases have dropped off dramatically too. Just the normal ones we see that are high dollar claimants, we don't have as many going on at this current time that we would still see.
That was a good question, Miles. John, as far as our stop loss coverage goes, if we do have individuals that unfortunately do have to be hospitalized due to this, I know it's a novel virus. Is there an exclusion in our stop loss for a virus or a pandemic like this, or would any services needed due to that type of illness also be covered under our stop loss policy?
Correct. It's covered as any other illness under stop loss.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Wilkerson?
Motion to receive the update?
Ms. Miller has a motion to receive the update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lambert. Roll call vote. Ms. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Davison?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
The chair is an aye. Thank you, John. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding any item currently on the BET watch list. Any discussion? Okay, you'll move the 77,000 over the recommendation column, and then,
Yeah, it looks like item 3, item 4, 5, and 6 all have things placed on or recommended.
thank you. All right, no action needed on item number 9. Board comments, Ms. Miller?
Everyone stay safe.
I'm gonna go in order here so I don't lose anything. Sorry, guys. Ms. Lauren?
Everyone stay safe.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Wash your hands.
Mr. Lambert?
I think this meeting went well. Thank you to the IT staff for putting this together.
Mr. Davison?
Thank you.
Mr. Morrison?
Thanks for everybody being open-minded to all these suggestions too. So appreciate it.
Ms. Mertens?
Thanks, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Just to reiterate what some of you guys said, thanks to Walter and Kit and everybody that, worked hard in the clerk's office together. We really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody's patience, with this. This is a different time, and we're showing once again that, we're here to work together. I appreciate every single one of you. That's all I have. Any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to either recess or adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Ms. Miller has a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Honeycutt seconds that motion. Do a roll call vote. Ms. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Ms. Mertens? Can you repeat
Aye.
that, please? Thank you. Chair is an aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Aye.